Hey guys, welcome to another video. Before we get started, just to let you guys know if you hear a lot of loud noise in the background, one of my neighbors, I live in an apartment, one of my neighbors has their unit being remodeled, so you're going to hear like a lot of hammers and drills and stuff like that. So if you hear a lot of loud noises, unfortunately that's what that's about. And also kind of number two on this video is this is definitely going to be a very different opinion for this movie. I know Halloween Ends, which is the film I'm reviewing for you today, is getting a lot of negative reviews right now. So I am going to be one of the few people that's probably going to be a little bit more nicer to this movie than other people are. So just kind of letting you know that. So for those who really hate this movie and we're really hoping for another hate-filled Halloween Ends review, unfortunately that is not this video because I actually have kind of a lot of positive things to say about this movie. So let's get started. So when Halloween Ends, you guys, this is supposedly the final, quote unquote, final um, installment in the Halloween franchise. It's specifically the ending of this new trilogy of films that David Gordon Green was responsible for. His 2018 sequel was a direct story follow up to the original 1978 Halloween movie. Then he obviously did Halloween Kills as well, which was kind of his second installment in his new trilogy. And now we're here with Halloween Ends, which will supposedly end his interpretation of the Halloween franchise within his trilogy. Who knows if we'll ever get more Halloween films or anything like that. But in this movie, you guys, basically we start off with a new character who is doing a babysitting gig. He's babysitting this really bratty kid, and things get out of hand, things go horribly wrong, and somehow the kid ends up dead. And basically, the parents have to come back and get something because they forgot something before they headed out to do whatever they were doing that night. And leave this guy in charge, and this babysitting thing goes horribly wrong. And so this poor kid has to deal with all this public hate now for a good chunk of this movie. And we also find out that Laurie Strode hasn't seen Michael Myers in 4 years at this point. There's also been a good solid 4 years that have passed since the events of Halloween Kills. But nobody has seen Michael. Nobody knows where he is. Some people are even assuming that he is dead already. They don't know where he's staying at, or how he's eating, or where he's going to the bathroom, and people don't really know where he's even been on Halloween night for the past couple 4 years. So there's that whole thing with Michael, and basically more secrets get revealed, more things get found out about Michael over the course of this film. But while things are getting more discovered about Michael, things are getting worse with this kid who is being accused of this murder for this babysitting gig, and things really start to go bad with him. He starts having a relationship with Laurie Strode's granddaughter, who has a big role in the last two Halloween movies as well. So there's everything going on there. Laurie's taking it personally. She knows about all the public hate going on with this kid. In a way, this kid kind of reminds her of a young Michael Myers, which kind of bothers her even more. And so the thing with this kid goes horribly wrong. There's even more hate that this guy does based on these actions that he takes. And when you see the movie, you'll know what I mean. And Laurie has this final confrontation with Michael. Now that she knows where he is, now that she knows that he's still alive, she is hoping to take Michael out once and for all, so that this Halloween franchise could finally end once and for all. But overall, guys, I really did not mind Halloween Ends. I know there's a lot of people who hate this movie. It's getting very divisive reviews right now. There's either people who seem to absolutely hate it, calling it worst of the franchise, and there's people like me that are be like, it's not the best of the franchise, but there's things about it that I kind of like. There's risks that were taken. There's new things that they tried to do. There's more to it than just Laurie fighting Michael for a final time. There's a little bit more to it this time. Yeah, it is a little weird that there's a new character for a final installment that we're dedicating a lot of screen time to. He's not exactly the most likable person in the whole world, but there's just risks that were taken, and there was things that I'm glad that David Gordon Green got to make the film that he wanted to make, even though if that's not exactly the film that other Halloween fans might want him to make. But let's go over some positives and negatives, because like I said, I really did not mind this movie. Yes, there's absolutely some problems with it. Yes, there's some things on my negatives that I'm sure a lot of people are going to agree with. But there's a lot of things about my positives I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with. So let's kind of go over some things with that. So first and foremost, I think this is a great saga finale for the Halloween franchise. When I went into this movie, I was kind of wondering, how are they going to wrap up Laurie's story? How are they going to wrap up Michael's story? And they do it successfully for both. I like how Michael's story concludes, and I like how Laurie's story concludes. And that's probably the best way I can put it without spoiling anything. Um, Laurie has been dealing with Michael for 40 years now in this new timeline, and we were at a point where she has to wrap things up. She has to come to conclusion. She has to move on with her life, and I'm glad that this film does that in a way that won't disappoint somebody who's specifically hoping that good things will happen to Laurie at the end of the story. And I'm glad they're able to do it in a way where the movie doesn't conclude with people like, oh, well, Michael has to come back now after that. There's just a lot of closure finally to a Halloween movie where I'm just like, you know what? Maybe this truly is the end of the Halloween franchise based on what I've seen. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. I'm glad that Laurie and Michael have the closure that they finally need to wrap this franchise up. So if this is the last one, I'm kind of okay with that just because they did wrap it up in a way that is the end of the franchise. Laurie Strode's character arc I thought was very good here too. We don't get to see we get to see a fair amount of screen time with her. I would say her and this new Corey character probably get the most screen time in this movie, which is going to disappoint a lot of people. But her character arc in particular, I thought was very strong. She's writing this memoir. She's really trying to wrap things up with the Michael scenario. She's starting to understand just how much the Michael Myers stuff is ruining both her life and her granddaughter's life. A lot of her own family members are gone. A lot of Allison's family members are gone. I think that's the name of the granddaughter. It's time to move on. It's time to wrap up the whole Michael Myers thing. If he is alive, we got to kill him off once and for all. But if he is truly dead, we have to move on with our lives and live it the best that we can based on what we have. I do like the late 70s vibe that David Gordon Green went with again. He really went hard with that when we see a young Hawkins in Halloween Kills. It even feels like something that's filmed out of 1978 in that scene. But I do like the late 70s vibe that Gordon Green just tried to maintain in this movie. It does feel like something that is trying to properly continue that 1978 story from all those years ago. So I do like the vibe that this film has. And overall, and like I think this one's probably going to be the biggest hot take. Overall, I kind of didn't mind the whole Corey character side story. It's a very big part of the movie. It's one of those things where if you're not into it right away, you're really not going to like it as the film keeps going. But there's a lot of things I understood that was going on with his character. There's a lot of things with his character involving kind of what if a new Michael Myers might be among us kind of an idea. There's a lot of things regarding his character that shows a lot of trauma that kind of make you understand why he's the way he is, even if it's not necessarily a good thing. But I like this side story with this character. I was intrigued, I was entertained, and I enjoyed it. So I guess it's not something I absolutely loved. It's maybe not the route I probably would have taken Halloween Ends if I was at David Gordon Green's shoes, but overall I like the side story. What can I say? And that goes to my next positive point. I think this is an entertaining movie. I never really felt bored with this movie. You know, sometimes when you watch a movie, there's moments that you like, but there's also just as many moments that you don't like. And you really were hoping for like a better pacing to the story. I don't think I can say that about Halloween Ends. I really like how smooth everything feels. It feels entertaining. I never felt bored with it. There's not a lot of moments it's like, okay, come on, let's move on to the next thing. I was entertained the whole time. I was entertained with the story that David Gordon Green presented. And I also like the side story with Laurie's granddaughter, with Allison. I thought the closure to her character was good. I thought the things that her character was going through were very good for this story. There's a lot of things about her and Laurie that are different, that they're clearly different people at this point, and I'm glad that the film kind of clarifies why they're different and why Allison wants to kind of do her own thing and why Laurie wants to go and do her own thing, and how she'll take from Laurie's life experiences but still wants to be her own person. And yeah, I really like the stuff that they did with Allison in this movie too. But for my negatives of this movie, the part that I think people were like, oh yeah, the part I'm waiting for, what did you hate about the movie? So there's things about this movie that need to be better. I still think out of David Gordon Green's films, I think his 2018 film is probably still my favorite of his Halloween movies. I think the original, the H2O movie, his 2018 movie and probably Halloween 3 are probably still my favorite Halloween movies. But for my negatives, first and foremost, I think Michael Myers needed more to do in this movie. I don't think there was enough Michael Myers moments in this film. And when he does show up, I think the Corey character kind of takes the spotlight too much out of the character. I think Michael deserved the spotlight more in this movie just because this is a 13 film saga now, and I think more screen time was needed regardless if he's more fatigued than what we're used to seeing Michael look like and how we see him react to stuff and how we see him do stuff. I think that's the biggest thing with this movie. I think that needed to be improved. Is I just needed more scenes with Michael. More scenes needed to happen, just giving him the spotlight, giving him kind of his final hurrah as this villainous character before we kind of take him out for good. And I thought that was one thing that the film could have done better with. I also really did not buy into Michael's 4-year living situation since the last movie. It takes a very big leap of faith to believe that Michael has been living in this sewer for 4 years since the events of the last movie. I don't know where he gets food. I don't know where he goes to the bathroom. I don't know how he manages to keep that entire Halloween costume on for like the hot, humid summer, and how nobody was able to find him, and how this sewer area is easily accessible to the public. And 4 years down there is a little hard to believe. That's a living situation that I had a hard time buying into as I was watching this movie. There's also some bully stereotype characters that are just not necessary. There's just your typical people who pick on the lead character's kind of ordeal. And I did not like the bully characters that show up in this movie, whether it's someone that was irritating Corey, or someone who was picking on Laurie Strode, or someone who was picking on Allison. The bully characters in this film I thought were very terribly written. So the bully stereotypes, I really wish there was a little more to it, because the way that these characters are written when the bully characters show up, it's really not very good. I really wish these characters were completely written out of this movie. I think this film would have been completely better as a result of not using these terribly written characters. And overall, though John Carpenter and his son returned to score this movie, I think they could have done a better job making the score stand out a little bit more, because I love what they did with the 2018 Halloween film. It definitely was clear that John Carpenter was back scoring a Halloween movie. Same with Halloween Kills. It was clearly back that he was back scoring a Halloween movie. It's here in this movie. It gets the job done, but it doesn't really leave an impression on you the way that other John Carpenter scores might. It just kind of felt like he showed up to work, got the job done, but didn't do really anything special with it. So that was just kind of my take on John Carpenter's score with this movie. Love what he did with the score. Really just wish he kind of did more with it, though. But overall, I'm going to give Halloween Ends an 8.5 out of 10. I know a lot of people are not going to be happy hearing that. That there's things about this movie that I liked. There's things about this movie that I really didn't mind. I liked the risks that were taken. I liked that David Gordon Green kind of got to make the film that he wanted. And I liked that there was closure to both Laurie and Michael in this long-going Halloween franchise. Sure, there's things along the way that were negatives that I think could have been better, but I like the movie, and I recommend it. I'm going to be one of the few people that probably recommends it. So 8.5 out of 10 for me. I like Halloween Ends, and if you're a Halloween fan, give it a try. I think it is a lot better than what a lot of these negative reviews are saying. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. I recommend Halloween Ends.